Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's week 280. Wow, I can't believe we've been doing this long. It's the Town Hall Academy from Remarkable Results Radio. Carm Capriato, the place where the voices, insights, and ideas that shape the future of the service aftermarket reside here as we advance the aftermarket. I have been burning to talk about this topic we have here today, burning to talk about it, this whole ABC technician rating system that we so just nonchalantly just drop. We got a great panel. I'd like you to meet my panel here. Tim Izzy from Izzy's Auto Service in Reading, Pennsylvania. Hello, Tim.
Hi, Carm. How are you today?
I'm great. First time on the show, new voice. Glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
Matt Fonslow, shop manager, Riverside Automotive, Red Wing, Minnesota, and from the Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z podcast. Hello, Matt.
How's it going, eh?
Hey?
Eh?
Did you move?
No, we're close enough to Canada.
Okay.
Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota. Very good. Ryan Koyman, Director of Training, Standard Motor Products. He oversees, you got a big job here, the operational development of the Pro Training Group. He's been a lead tech drivability specialist, written ASE test questions, co-hosted car and driver radio. And you just told me off screen that you have now 10 new jobs that you have. It is, I have to tell you, it makes me always feel good when Tracy just says, Dad, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I feel so important. And I always say yes.
Well, Carm, what it boils down to for me is they haven't found anything I'm good at yet, so they keep throwing new stuff at me, like, catalog imaging, vehicle test facility. Eventually something's going to stick here.
Something will stick, and you'll actually be able to do something really good someday.
Well, hopefully, that's the intent.
So good to have you guys here. We're coming to you live from the Remarkable Results Radio podcast studio. Love hanging out with you every Friday. If you're with us on social media, check. We've already had someone check in and says, wow, this is going to be a great panel. Check in with your city. And please, if you got a question or two or a comment, we'd love to ask it of our panel and or throw it up on the screen. Our great partner, Shopware. What if your customer could send you a video of that rumbling sound that they hear and make it part of the repair order? Well, it's not a dream, my friends, but the reality of Shopware. The future's here. Get shopware.com. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and thanks. Aftermarket Weekly next week, Jay Malinowski, we're going up to Saskatchewan to see his place. And next week's Town Hall Academy. Is your bathroom like the RITZ CARLTON? Now, you may just say, what are we doing an episode about a bathroom and how your bathrooms look? But I was just recently in San Diego at the Elite Invitational. We had this incredible panel that spoke to us, that were just recruited from the street. And basically, putting up the bathroom as far as an important, clean place. If the bathroom's clean and it's neat and it's organized, they feel that so will their car be and so will their experience. And that's an awful lot to do with it. Okay, guys, we have so much to talk about. As I said earlier, we've been doing this for 7 years, A-Tech, B-Tech, C-Tech, GS. And, sooner or later you say, what about that guy who can flip an engine in half book time? What about the person who can do, a timing chain, timing belt? They do it so well, never a comeback, always efficient. Why aren't they an A-Tech mechanically? Tim, is this outdated?
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, 100%. There's so many, in my opinion, intangibles that go into a technician's skill level and comfort level that, in my opinion, instead of defining someone as a particular skill level or even trying to, let's define them by what they're good at. And as a shop and as shop owners, instead of saying, oh, I'm going to give that to my B guy, no, I'm going to give that engine job to my best engine guy. Because I may have an A-Tech that is a really good diagnostic guy that doesn't like turning nuts and bolts. So if I give him that job, he's not going to be as fast. He's not going to be happy doing it. So if we keep everyone doing the work that they like doing, that they're good at, everyone's going to be happier and everyone's going to make money.
It's a very fair statement. I'll jump in on that. My last presentation, I was blessed to be in a large enough facility where we had specialists. And that was exactly it. I mean, Matt and I have been friends for 20 years, and he knows I'm not going to be your guy to swap an engine or do that timing chain or timing belt. I'm not going to get my hands dirty, right? But so we're blessed to have specialists, and all I did was diagnose and module programming or electrical repairs. And now there's techs on the other side of the shop that would walk out if that was their main source of income. But you give them an engine job or something, these guys are masters at that. We had specialists that did brakes, specialists that did tires, specialists that did front end, 2 specialists that only did transmission. And so, I don't want to say that this is an antiquated method of having A, B, or C. I think there's still A, B, or C levels inside of those specialty levels, right? So when it comes to the heavy line tech, the guy swapping out engines, there could be a lead one, and there could be a, I don't want to say subservient, but a level below, somebody that's probably not quite as versed and still has opportunity to learn for that. And at the end of the day, it comes back to overarching picture of the shop and how the employees fall within that picture. And then, my heart, it's how you direct those employees and provide really a pathway for them and help graduate them. Hopefully we're going to have masters at all different categories at the end of the day.
Hey, Matt, let me ask you a question. Inside of your shop, you've probably got, I mean, I know that you would classify yourself as, I don't know if it's drivability, if it's
Janitorial, usually.
Diagnostician, drivability, A-Tech, okay, AA, AAA, whatever. But you've got guys in your shop that are probably mechanically A-Techs. And maybe it's time for us to stop saying, "Oh, I'm looking for an A-Tech." What does that mean? Is it a mechanical? Is it a drivability or diagnostician? What would we label the diagnostician guy? Would we label it a drivability A-Tech or a diagnostician A-Tech?
It seems like we really don't have set definitions for what that means. I think the nature of it was from labor guides. Old labor guides would assign a difficulty to it. And I don't know how they really came up, upon that. But the A-Tech or A level, and I think we'll just stick to like the tech. A-Tech generally was considered somebody that was completely independent. They could, of course, drive the vehicle in, but analyze it, diagnose it, come up with a diagnosis, and then perform the repair beginning to end all by themselves. And that was considered an A-Tech. And then B-Tech would be a slightly below, maybe a weaker diagnostician or something of that nature, maybe not quite as independent. C-Tech, maybe even less so. And I don't know, some people may have a C and then go to a D. A D would be completely not independent, maybe a complete apprentice level. And then C would be maybe independent on certain maintenance services, stuff like that, stuff that we would deem easy, which gets kind of dicey. When I hear people talk about A-Techs nowadays, it depends on the shop environment itself, but usually it implies one or the other. They're either heavy line replacer or parts hanger, if you will. I don't mean that condescendingly at all. We need those techs.
Those are the money makers.
Yeah. And then you
Yeah,
have the diagnostician, and they use them almost interchangeably, and they need context around it when they're talking about it. So that's what I would say. And I guess just to add quick, hopefully quick. And I think certain shops, you can have an A-Tech that is 100% independent. They bring it in, diagnose it, repair it, beginning to end. But usually those shops are specialists. They only work on a few car lines, or that tech only works on 1 or 2 car lines. Someone in this shop, forget about it. In the Bay right now is a Corvette, a Jaguar, an 81 Rabbit, and I think must be like an 08 TT. And outside there's a Ford pickup and a Chevy pickup.
Yeah, it's funny, Matt, you mentioned those the skill levels assigned in the labor guides. In prepping for this, I dug out some of our old labor guides from the 70s, some of the old Chilton and Mitchell motor books. And I was looking at them, and in the front, they started explaining how they came up with skill levels. And it says that like an A technician level or a job assigned to an A technician would be something that required extreme precision, measuring a complex task, something like that. So I saw that, I looked at it, and I started going through labor guides, our current labor guides, and looking at skill levels that were assigned to certain jobs. And one of the things I noticed was they didn't differentiate across vehicles at all as far as skill levels, and things that they assigned an A skill level to a B versus a B skill level that required about the same amount of work and the same type of task was completely arbitrary. I was looking at a K2500 that I was working on earlier this week, just because that's what I had built in a labor guide, and replacing a crankshaft in that was something to be assigned to an A tech because you had to measure bearing clearances. But replacing piston rings was assigned to a B technician. But it's like, wait, I still got to measure piston ring clearances. So it really didn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah, somewhere along the way, we lost that kind of sight from the labor guides.
Well, and think back to when that labor guide was published, Tim, or the Chilton manuals that you're referring to. We lived in a different world then, right? I mean, I started in the shop in 1992 using those paper catalogs, and that was the old grease monkey mechanic type world where, the shop, the same guy talked to the customer, pulled the car in, did the work, ordered the parts, called the customer, fixed the job, kind of did everything with that, right? And look at how we've evolved in almost any shop. You've got a service writer, you've got the front staff and the back staff separated there. And so I think that's probably where Carm was had his burning desire to talk about this topic. The industry has certainly evolved a lot, and maybe our nomenclature in that regard has not changed.
Yeah, I think in Vegas for Apex, this kind of started to the seed of this episode was maybe tossed out there. Danny Sanchez had a thought that I thought was interesting. At least it was never really meant to be in normal conversation, and especially amongst the technicians themselves and the public. It was really amongst shop owners when they're talking about their techs, like, hey, I got an A tech, I got a B tech. I don't know. I think the presence of that stuff in the labor manual kind of might hurt that idea. But I think it at least acknowledges kind of what we're talking about, that things have become a lot more nuanced, much more nuanced now. There's a lot going on, right? Back in the day, there's no TPMS, no ADAS, no programming. The most sophisticated piece of equipment in the shop might have been the alignment rack, maybe
the sun machine,
the
right?
sun machine. Yeah.
Scope, yep.
But even think about how communication styles have changed significantly. I mean, look at how we've got, digital vehicle inspections now, and just really how most of us have met, right? Online, first and foremost. And, back in those days, you were stuck in the four walls of your shop with a paper guide, and then all of a sudden ITN and all this stuff comes out, and you start seeing what other people are doing. And it's really opened us up to some sort of standardization. I refer to like the motorist assurance program, map standards for how do we recommend services to the customer. And it's stuff like that that's helped kind of, I don't want to say level the playing field, but just make sure that we're all singing from the same hymnal, right? And so I think this is an opportunity to do something like that when it comes to referring to, I guess not even skill levels of technicians, but maybe it is skill levels within certain categories of job classification.
Yeah, it's probably the best hope is by categorization, that the brakes person, there are levels,
Absolutely.
It's easy to say how easy brakes are until, you're doing rear brakes on some, whatever, a Volvo, and you got to put it into service mode. And depending on the scan tool now, what are you guys using, and it may seem easy if you've done it a few times, but for a few others, they wouldn't even think to put it into a service mode.
Or even clean slides for that matter.
That's a topic for a whole nother conversation, Ryan.
Exactly.
Just beat those pads into the bracket with a hammer. You don't have to clean anything.
Right. Yeah. But that might even touch a little bit on how our industry is where it is, because you still have the DIY segment trying to compete with some of this stuff too, and go, oh, it's a D-Tech level job, but I can do that myself, and that's what keeps us continuing to do what we do with that.
That's why the cars keep coming in when they get broken in the garage at home. Guys, a thought. We're independent, so there's nothing we can't do, but we've adopted, apparently, we have adopted, to Tim's point, from 50 years ago, this ABC rating. Matt, Tim, have you ever put an ad out looking for, I don't know how you would word your ad, and there's so many clever ways to do it today, looking for an A-Tech? Would you say mechanical A-Tech? Would you say diagnostician A-Tech, so that you could separate that out, so you'd be looking for the person you're looking for?
I've never actually used the terms A, B, or C
Okay.
to describe it. It's usually, I don't even say a heavy line anymore, because I think people get an idea that it might be heavy duty and not, timing chains, engines, transmissions.
Okay. Because part of what I think we're trying to do here for the industry is to help ourselves listen to this, maybe reshape how we deal with our team, how we maybe pay them, how we train them, how we look at career pathing, and how we recruit. And that's why I'm kind of crazy about this topic, and this may be just the one of many to discuss. Let's stop for one more minute and talk to our great partner Shopware. Talk about our partner Shopware. Stop waiting around for your money. Get paid with the flick of a finger, the same finger that approves repairs on a smartphone seconds after you send an estimate. Shopware works with the smartest companies to make your life easier. Talk to my friends at Shopware. Get shopware.com. Hey, I love where this is going. Tim, is it you gotta be pretty talented to work tires and change tires today?
Yeah, I've thinking back over the years, it's always kind of boggled my mind when we think about it. Yeah, the jobs that we tend to give to the, I hate to use this term, the lesser skilled people in the shop. Like Matt said, that Volvo that needs brakes. Or as you mentioned, a car's coming in with tires, and we've got a car that's got TPMS that may need a retrain when it's done. Or, God forbid, we break a tire pressure sensor servicing the car and we have to replace it and reprogram it. That we tend to give those jobs to lesser skilled people. We think, it's just brakes, it's just tires. But we also think about as from the other side of that, those are jobs where if there's a mistake made, have the highest potential for injury to the vehicle owner or anyone in particular, and the highest risk of a comeback. Yeah, take, as Matt said, what if we got the guy that's changing brakes on a car with electric parking brake, and he doesn't know that he's got to take and retract that caliper with a scan tool, and he just jams the caliper back. Now, at best case, it gets caught before it left the shop, and the shop gets to buy a very expensive brake caliper. In a worst case, you send a car out with brakes that don't work right. And that's a massive liability. Yeah, same with tires. Just think about what it takes just to put a wheel on a car correctly. Especially Matt, myself, we're in the Rust Belt. So you take a wheel off a car, there's a good chance that you've got to make sure there's corrosion, the hub's corroded, the pilots are corroded, studs may be corroded. You got to inspect it, make sure everything goes back together right and gets torqued correctly. Otherwise, that wheel's coming off when you're going down the road. And for lack of a better word, an unskilled, a low-skilled technician may not look at that. We've got to teach them. May not have the experience to notice that something is wrong. Has always been my fear on something like that.
Yep. Yeah, or run flat tires or low profile tires that we did not have back in the day with these rigid sidewalls, special equipment. You know, that you better have a tire machine that can help you out. I know there's shops that do it without it, and how they do it, I mean, they're doing a good job of it. They have my utmost respect. It's brutal.
That's something we quite often talk about as industry recruitment. Everybody says, "Oh, it's a great industry. There's lots of technological opportunities for young technicians, and we need more than just a wrench turner." And then I always ask the follow-up question: "Okay, if this guy shows up at your shop, what are you gonna have him do?" "I'll change oil and change tires." Like, well, that's how I was ruined. That doesn't mean we need to ruin the next generation this way.
He can reset the maintenance reminder light. I mean, come on.
Exactly. Well, and it's like, this kid's great with computers. You're not so great. Why don't you have him start learning ADAS and module programming and stuff like that? Versus, as you said, the best way to make a $10,000 mistake is to double gasket an oil filter or something like that, right?
Yep.
Or not bolted a tire on properly. So, yeah, to bring the conversation back into the realm of A, B, C level technicians here, D level or GS typically meant you're going to be doing those type of jobs. And no, that's where attention to detail probably matters more than if I don't adjust a throttle position sensor right, or mass airflow sensors installed backwards or something like that. It's not going to have the repercussions that type of mistake could have for somebody.
Yeah, that's along those lines, when I started working in the shop, one of the first jobs my dad had me starting with was he had me helping him doing evaporator cores. We did, we're air conditioning specialty at the time. We did a lot of evaporator cores, and he figured I was less likely to hurt someone. What's the worst case if I crack a trim piece? It's going to be a lot less of a problem than if I leave a wheel loose.
So, guys, let's talk about this. Matt, if you look at the team that you have, excuse me, who assigns the skill rating, guys? Is it the individual tech who feels where he is in his career and the training that he has? We keep talking about this ABC, but Matt, I'll bet you don't assign. I bet you they don't assign. I think this is an assumed thing that goes on inside of our industry. I'm looking for a B tech so that I can make him an A tech. Really?
Yeah. I don't even know if I think that way. I know that we have people kind of like Tim opened with, that they have an attraction to a certain area of service. We have somebody that really likes suspension, steering, and alignment. Luckily, I mean, it took a while to find somebody like that. Are they A tech? I mean, if he wants to be an A tech, we'll call him an A tech. There's a title portion of that too. Now that kind of pops into my head thinking about this. There's the title saying you're an A tech, and then there's the income or compensation that's associated with that title. And maybe that's probably where there's a lot of importance put on it, especially from a technician perspective, is I want to be considered an A tech so I can get paid like an A tech. But usually it's everybody kind of has their specialty area of focus, and we try to get them as good as possible at that. And then do you want to branch out? And how reasonable is it to branch out as well? If you're going to be pulling in these vehicles and doing heavy line stuff, engines, trannies, pulling heads, timing chains, is it really reasonable to have you trained up on, programming multiple different car lines? It starts to get dicey. And not that I don't want to imply it's so hard. It's just different. Every car line's different. Tim was talking about difficulty levels a little bit between car lines. The first thing that I thought of is actually programming a Chrysler vehicle with aftermarket with a J-box. Actually programming, cakewalk. It pretty much holds your hand. Getting set up to program it, brutal. 3 subscriptions. That's a lot of crap to remember.
Notepad, that's your friend.
Yeah.
Copy and paste your key in there. But no, I think back to Carm's question, who assigns this? Each technician hopefully is self-aware and understands a little bit about where they are, but I think ultimately it starts at the top, right? With a shop owner of recognizing strengths and weaknesses of people. As we've talked, we're all created different, right? We like to pretend we're all the same these days, but we are different, and we have different likes and different interests with that type of stuff. And then, but again, I look at shop owners should have an understanding of where their staff lies, where they have the gaps, where they have the needs. And then part of it kind of comes into training your staff to make sure that you fill those gaps. And how do you work them up through that? Since I'm in the corporate world here, that's something we talk about a lot, is career pathing. Okay, if somebody comes in as an entry-level salesperson, how do we get them up through here? And as we talk through all this different stuff, as we train technicians, how can we set up a training program to help elevate this person? If we're doing a module programming class, just because Matt mentioned that that's not appealing to every technician. But if we're doing a vehicle electronics class, probably every technician in the shop should attend that at some point. They need to understand that if you're the brake technician, if you're the steering and suspension technician, if you're the drivability technician, or the transmission, you need to understand vehicle electronics, right? But they don't all need to know module programming. And so it's again up to I think the shop owner to understand who they're working with and kind of plug together. It almost takes time to sit back and plan your year out and understand what training opportunities are there, and help have that conversation with your technician and go, here's what your year looks like. Here's some online programs for you to take. Here's a live in class, to take. Here's where I want you to work on your certifications even, and help that technician within their categorization become the best that they can be.
It seems to me like, and you guys probably know way better about this stuff than I do, but other professions, other professional skilled trades, they have certain levels. And ABC tech could be maybe translated over to apprentice, journeyman, master, but don't they have like very specific criteria? An electrician and plumber might be rough to compare to automotive, because we have so many different things going on, different systems, different areas of repair. But maybe like construction, right? Because you got framers and roofers and foundation, bricklayers, if they do it or pour it or whatever. There's different elements involved. And maybe you start out going into construction, but you end up on a path. So I guess the question is could we translate that slightly, and then would we have to set up what do you need to know to move from apprentice C to B, and then who signs off on that? And then right now it seems, and I could be way off base, right now it seems like it's very much on management of the individual shop to come up with that criteria. We don't really have one profession wide.
But I think that's the answer, Matt. I almost think that we're going to walk away from this saying we're going to have to police this ourselves, and we're going to have the kind of culture in our business that sets up whatever the rating system is. And so a couple of things: certification, ASE. I think about pay. And I want to be an A-Tech because I want to earn more money. I think you could be a mechanical A-Tech and earn as much as a diagnostic A-Tech.
Should be more.
Again, okay, even more. Yeah, think about that, because the gravy, right?
Yeah.
And we should. And that was my question, Ryan. You just broke the
sorry.
code.
Sorry,
no. Mechanical earn as much as diag, and so you say even more.
Well, I think Matt and I have discussed this many times. Of the mechanical guy is selling parts and labor.
Yeah.
The diagnostician is selling labor, and that's it. And now if he's able to, bang out those diagnoses, or the shop has a tiered labor rate and there's a different labor rate, for diagnosis, that's something different. But years ago, the front end guy hammering ball joints in and out all day was making way more money than the drivability guys, digging down a wiring problem.
Guys, let's stop for a moment and think about the ASC, a master tech. I mean, maybe that's the word. We don't need a rating system. We just need to look at what ASE provides us and go accordingly.
I wish I was smarter to be able to word it better. I don't know how to word this properly because it just sounds so condescending or devaluing ASE, and I mean the exact opposite. But we put a lot of clout in that certification, and I think we should, but for different reasons. If you have your master certification, you've met the minimum standard set by industry. ASE doesn't set this. Industry sets it. But you've met the minimum. And I'm not saying it should be higher. We could probably argue it should be lower, which I know sounds counterintuitive. But we give this, you pass these 8 exams and you meet the minimum standard, and now we hang this title on you, master technician. And it sets a really, really bad expectation for both the person that earned the credentials and those who are hiring the people with the credentials. But I don't know a better word. ASE needs to figure very heavily into this. They're very important. We should be pushing it hard.
It's industry regulating itself, right?
Yes.
And that's the importance of it.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with you on that, Matt. I look at that. I was 19 years old when I passed the last set of tests to get my ASE master certification. Was I a master technician at 19? No. But I had a piece of paper that said I was. So, like you say, it sets a minimum set of requirements, but it doesn't. What's to differentiate among that group, shall we say? That separates one person's skills from another person's skills. But that also fails to take into account with first things we talked about, that guy that is awesome at turning nuts and bolts, but may not be a good electronics person, is not going to be able, or may not be able to attain that ASE that master certification. They may not be able to pass A6 or A8. A guy that's a great diagnostician, that is probably not the person you want fixing an automatic transmission, may not be able to pass the automatic transmission test. Yeah, I'm one of those too, Matt.
Yeah, I passed it my first temp, and my transmission guys who were geniuses working next to me couldn't pass it, right? And it is what it is, though.
It goes back to some people take great tests, give good tests, take good tests. Matt, you and I chatted a while back. I can't remember the episode. Oh, by the way, Ryan, I wanted to make a mention about MAP. We recently did an episode on the Motorist Assurance Program. It was 751, just in the last week. But over to my thought about, Matt, career development, keeping resumes. And so I've got, I'm helping my people find their career path, find their training path. We need to keep resumes. So here comes, the bank of ASE tests and what's going on with that. But you got to support it with training, Ryan. You don't know anything about training, Ryan, do you?
I've spent a few hours involved with it.
A little bit, right?
And that's one of the reasons I got my team to go through the accreditation process a couple of years ago. Through ASE, and it was very important to us, and it was important to industry. So we put the effort in, and just kind of making sure that we're vetted and putting legit information out there, and feeding into what the industry needs here with us, and that's where I look forward to seeing the industry go, is tagging on hours of training along with certification. It's just like these two other gentlemen mentioned. You can have all the paperwork, you can be a great test taker, but if you don't have that experience, just that feel, right, of when the bolt's going to snap, or how to drill this just right, or the seat of the pants misfire, along with training and understanding that stuff. Tolman's, where I worked before coming to Standard, we did local articles about not necessarily our certifications, but it was about the amount of hours our technicians went to training to prove to our customers that we're staying up to date with technology here. We also talked about our tooling, and that kind of let the capabilities speak for themselves. And so I think that's part of it. The industry needs to follow here is certification along with vetted training to understand. We used to live in a world, and these guys will agree, you used to just figure it out, right? The car came in the first time, we'll just figure it out, or on the job or just in time training. Now, as we start transitioning into electric vehicles, hybrids, there's a lot of stuff that's legitimately dangerous out there, and people need to be trained on this before they even think about saying, yeah, bring it in.
Yeah, even like, and Tim probably could go on for a day on this with the YF stuff. You bought the machine, you're ready to go. And what are they doing? Just like they did with every other system, they're pumping dye into it. And then there's my softball for Tim.
Yeah, we don't have enough time left today to go through that completely, Matt. But I think back to your point about with the looking at what other industries do. I'll take an example completely different from our industry, and it goes with what Ryan said about the required training. My lawyer was in this week picking up his car, and he called and he said, "Hey, I'm going to be late to pick it up. Can you wait for me?" "Yeah, sure." He said he was in training all day. His required, taking his hours to keep his law license. And if we need to factor something like that into the ASC certifications or something similar, that on top of, like Ryan said, on top of the minimum standard of test taking, that you have to have so many hours of continuing education every year. Goes with it, coming from the engineering side. When after I graduated college, how engineering does it, you go to engineering school. If you graduate from an accredited engineering school, to progress, you can sit and take the fundamentals of engineering exam, which would basically make you a journeyman engineer. As an engineer in training, to progress, you have to work under a licensed professional engineer for a period of time before you can sit another exam to become licensed as a professional engineer, kind of that entry-level journeyman master model. And then the same thing applies, continuing education to keep your license. If that is an example for a way that our industry may need to progress in the future.
It's amazing. We have this 60-mile-an-hour bullet that can so many things can go wrong if we don't do something when we get our hands on it, and yet the engineering, you're going to build a building, make sure it doesn't fall and crash and kill people. Interesting parallel. Hey, I'm going to stop one more time for our great partner, and then let's come back and whatever you guys didn't have a chance to talk about, let's do it. If you want to earn customers' trust, show them their worn brake pads rather than telling them about them. When you take them under the hoist via photos and videos, they can't deny their need for repairs. Talk to my great friends at getshopware.com. Guys, until we get some kind of overarching thing like the lawyers and the engineers have, we almost have to police this ourselves. We almost have to say, listen, if you're going to work for me, here's how it goes. Here's the hours of training. Here's the certifications you need. Here's the training resume that we're going to work on. And we don't have any ratings here. We just really have qualifications of training. And we're going to assign jobs to the best we have in their particular class and level of competence.
Well, and it goes back to industry regulating itself, which I think we're much better on it than we ever have been. But we're also, there's more opportunity than there ever has been also. I mean, you see more and more shop owners signing up for shop management classes. So I think that they are truly better shop owners, which means that they're better personnel handlers, right? I mean, it used to be, well, I'm a pretty good tech. I'm going to go open up my own shop. Well, you might be a horrible businessman. You might be a horrible HR personnel. You might be a horrible salesperson, but you own a shop. Shop owners have kind of flipped the switch now, and they're learning how to be HR managers. They're learning how to be smart businessmen or women. And the business model is so much different now. And so along with that type of training, you've got the industry regulating itself through ASC. You've got the MAP standards, which were birthed out of need within the industry itself. And pile this stuff together and let's help build a better person. That's one thing I enjoyed fixing cars, but in my role now, I'm fixing people more than anything. And that's the most rewarding thing of all, is seeing the career paths of many of my employees through that. And that's what I hope other shop owners are seeing now, is enabling your people to make a better life for themselves, right? And seeing your employees buy a boat, buy a home, buy a second car, send a kid to school, whatever, as a result of your business. And we all do this for our customers as well. And we enjoy fixing that car and getting it back out on the road there, even if it is for a lawyer, like Tim said. But it's we're smarter people now, and industry has got a good habit of regulating itself. And maybe this is, I don't know how, but we undertake this project here of building better people within the industry.
Ryan, thank you. I think part of this episode and what I do in Advancing the Aftermarket is to motivate people to another level, to better business acumen,
Absolutely.
to realize that if we're going to keep our people, keep our customers, grow a great company, and make the P word, the profit word, so that we're not in a hobby and we're really enjoying life. And again, feeding our business family, and letting them grow. We got to run a better, smarter business when it comes to this rating thing, when it comes to this training thing. So thank you for saying that. Self-policing, could we do it? To your point, the more that join the ranks of the I want to be a great businessman, the more that's going to start happening internally. And it may take a bunch of years for us to, come across that divide. But I think it has to happen, and I think it starts to happen with dialogues like we're having.
Absolutely.
Hey, Tim, I'll give you thank you for that, Ryan. I'll call that your last word. Tim, your last word here? Anything you wanted to cover that you didn't?
Yeah, I think along with Ryan's point of this problem becoming self-policing, I think we want it to be self-policing. No one understands the aftermarket and the automotive industry as well as the industry. We all know what needs to be done. We need to do it to make our industry better, and to get this to where we're assigning the right work to the right person. We're getting everyone on the right skill level. We're recognizing people for the skills that they have, instead of saying, "Oh, you're just a C guy." No, you have valuable, marketable skills. I think it comes down to, I'm not sure if this is the right way to put it, but I think as technology has advanced, it starts to weed out some of the bottom. Some of the shop owners that are not up with technology, that have chosen not to stay up with technology. Nuts and bolts are nuts and bolts, because they aren't anymore. We talk about, going back to the beginning, talking about some of the things like needing a scan tool to do brakes. There is no such thing on a car that is a standalone system anymore. Everything relies on everything else to function, which is where the training and the skill outside of the nuts and bolts to do brakes comes in. And why, like Ryan said, the whole shop needs to be up on electronics, because everything has electronics. There is no more nuts and bolts. I've seen it in my area that as some of those shops that are more towards the bottom have fallen away in the last couple of years, because technology has passed them by. And I'm struggling to phrase what I want to say, but I think it's a problem that has gotten better, and if we stay on top of it as an industry, it will continue to improve the direction the industry is headed. As Ryan said, the bad business owners are starting to fade away. People are realizing that I need to be more than a technician to run a shop, and progressing in that direction, that this has to be a business. I have to be an HR person. I have to be an accountant. I have to wear so many hats. It isn't just go buy a tool set, hang out a shingle, and I'm a mechanic now.
Well, one of the things that my takeaway from what you just said is you struggled to find the right words is take responsibility.
Yep.
And I think when you take responsibility for growing a great business, assigning work, getting your people certified and trained and minimalized in the number of hours of training. And here we got Ryan on, Director of Training, Standard Motor Products, one of the best companies in the aftermarket, and his insights and all that he does to help train our technicians. There we are. From Four Seasons to Standard to all the other great brands you have, Ryan, you're covering almost everything in the industry. So again, thanks Standard for doing all that. Matt, Matt, I'm going to give you the last word.
After all that nice stuff you say about Ryan, now I have to say something. Oh my God.
All right, I'll say something nice about you later.
That's
Beautiful shirt you're wearing,
after
buddy.
the audio is off. we'll whisper something. I don't know. I used to like to fix people until I fixed one of our technicians, helped him with his self-confidence and his self-esteem, and so he quit the industry. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I think a lot of it is it's a way to set goals too. I think you have to define what is a C Tech, what is a B Tech, what is an A Tech, and it has to probably be divided up by service area. And of course, like I said earlier, it depends on your situation, but it should be divided up by area and where they're going to be, what they're going to be doing primarily. And it could be a way to motivate too. And I don't mean like in a, taking advantage of them in some certain way. I do mean this like from a almost pure standpoint that this is what it's going to take to be a C Tech. This is what I expect. And then to go to the B Tech, you have to be certified. That in the area of where you're going to be performing repairs, you have to be certified. You can't be a B Tech unless you're certified. And then to become an A Tech, of course, you have to be certified. Maybe you have to be certified in a minimum number of areas. But then you must have X amount of hours of training in that area per year, no questions asked. And I should add, maybe even the B Tech, X amount of hours per training per year, and maybe across the board and maybe focused. You're gonna have to decide what that is. But I think when you give people a chance to have attainable goals, that's by itself motivational. I mean, that's why people blow away hours playing video games. There's goals. They want to meet the goals. And then you give people a chance to make plans, 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 15, 20-year plan. Like, I'm going to get to the A Tech level, whatever that means. I mean, now I know I'm going to be making as much as the business can pay me, or I'm going to be compensated as much as the business can reasonably compensate me. And I don't mean reasonably as some way for a shop owner to say like, well, we can't reasonably pay you more.
But up to your talent.
Right. I mean, I think that's the goal. Me as an employee, part of my job is to try to make you as much ethical profit as I can. And as an employer, you should be trying to pay me as much as you reasonably can without causing the rest of the business to suffer.
So Matt, just trying to visualize what you're talking about here. Could you almost see like a chart with different skill levels and different tasks, right? And so the mechanical, brake, and then you've got, let's say A, B, or C, or let's just even say 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
I think back to my kid's elementary report card. It wasn't letters. It was a 1, 2, or 3. Here you're satisfactory doing it. Here you're exceeding it. Here you're not quite exceeding it. And so within these different skill sets, we've got how are you doing? And you might be a 1 here, but you're a 3 over here, and but then it also shows, okay, to get from a 3 to a 2, this is what you need to do. To get from a 2 to a 1, and then based on your matrix of how you fall into your 1s or 2s or 3s, here's the pay scale that we're going to pay you, right? I mean, I need to visualize that type of stuff, and that's what I'm kind of.
And that's where I didn't know for like the other skilled trades. Like if you're an electrician, you cannot be a journeyman. Nobody will sign off on you being a journeyman until you can bend pipe. If you can't bend pipe, forget about it. And people will help you, and we'll send you to training, and we'll try to teach you. And then once you can do it consistently, somebody will sign off on it. Like, hey, they can bend pipe.
I
And he or
backed over
she is-
something with my tractor last night and bent it just perfectly.
So you're a journeyman electrician.
Didn't know it.
Great point, guys. This is a challenge to the industry, and when I think about this, setting your own standards, Matt, and I'll try to sum this up and tell me if I'm right or wrong. Have you got A1 through A8 in these, if you will, minimal certifications? You know, for some people it's easy to take a test, for others it isn't. But now we have L1 through L4. And where does that take the career path? Where does that take the pay program? And I almost think it's almost time to roll up our sleeves and rethink this whole thing. Now, can we get a standard thing in the industry? No, because we're independent. We can do it any way we want to do, right? There's not going to be a standard, but the challenge to the industry is to come up with something that works so that you can retain and train your people.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to be if you're going to be the A tech in diagnostics, like diagnostics, whole vehicle, you could make the strong argument that you'll have to have A1 through A9, L1, and then depending on if you're going to get into other stuff like L2, L3, L4, again, specific. And that's not to somehow pump up the diagnostic guy, because he's probably going to be a fairly decent test taker anyways. And it's not going to devalue the heavy line guy that can bang out, 50, 60, 70 hours a week doing timing chains and engines and trannies. Because like Ryan said, generally, they're the ones making us the money. Or the brakes guy.
And they got A written all over them.
Yep. Yeah. And that's
absolutely. And
they should be getting compensated just as well as any competent diag guy too.
Yeah. And I love your point. I don't know, was it Ryan or Tim that labor in the parts side, the mechanical side, and only labor goes on the side of the diag guy. And that is a challenge in our industry to people that aren't paying attention to that, and where their margins just aren't right. So there needs to be a diag labor rate. It needs to be intelligently calculated based on the loss of that parts margin. Guys, I thank you for this. I think what we started is a chance to have a really quality dialogue over this. Maybe for sure we're going to do this again someday. Appreciate you coming on and starting us off with this. Tim, Izzy's Auto Service in Reading, Pennsylvania. Matt Fonslow, shop manager, Riverside Automotive, Red Wing, Minnesota, and the Matt Fonslow Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z podcast on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Ryan Koyman, Director of Training, Standard Motor Products. Hey, thanks, guys, for being here. Appreciate it so much. Great dialogue.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the opportunity.